The views and opinions expressed in The Fact Is with Hollis Grant are those of Hollis Grant and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Droids Canada Network. Droids Canada Network does not take responsibility for any content or position produced by Hollis Grant and his show. Listener discretion is advised.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Fact Is. I'm your host, Hollis Grant. And on this week's show, we are going to be talking about one of our favorite topics of the last 2 years, COVID. COVID masks are back. Time to start wearing your masks and masking up for the good of everyone. It's to protect everyone. It's to slow the spread. It's to put on your mask so you cannot catch the disease or pass on this deadly disease that's been raging for the last 2 years. There is all sorts of data, scientific research in the last 2 years about masks. Some papers coming out claiming that you must triple mask, some double mask, some single mask, some that you need to have N95 masks, some where you don't even need masks at all. But all the while, if you're on Twitter or following the major legacy media, you hear the same statement. Trust the science, trust the science, trust the science, trust the science. Well, today, in the province of Ontario, province is the same as a state, Dr. Kieran Moore, earlier in the week, decided that the masks will not be coming back on in the province of Ontario, although case counts are rising in the province of COVID-19. But he's decided to hold off on it and say, you know what, it's recommended to wear a mask. You don't have to wear one, but it's recommended, which is a fair solution. If you want to wear one, wear one. If you don't want to wear one, don't wear one. That's a fair solution that all should have had from the beginning of the pandemic. Now, on past episodes that you can listen to on droidscanada.com, you'll see plenty of topics about COVID, mask mandates, and one of my personal favorite was a mask mandate from Dr. Theresa Tam, the federal chief medical officer, instructing Canadians back in September 2nd of 2020 to consider wearing a mask during sexual activity. These are people that typically would be living in the same home, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and you're instructing people to wear a face mask during sex. Well, Dr. Tam's back at it again. Now, the majority of provinces have gotten rid of the mask mandates. All across the region of Ontario, in the province of Ontario, no mask mandate. Cases are rising. So, with that being said, Dr. Theresa Tam now wants you to wear a mask. Taken from a CTV news article, Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Theresa Tam, is advising Canadians to continue to wear a mask regardless of varying jurisdictional guidelines as the country sees a resurgence of COVID-19 cases. Speaking to reporters during a pandemic update on Tuesday, Tam also underlined the need to get boosted with a third COVID-19 vaccine dose to prevent against severe outcomes from the illness. Quote, "Let me emphasize, all across Canada, doesn't matter where you are, it's very unlikely that the Omicron variant and the BA2 sublineage is spreading quite widely in your community. So it doesn't matter where you are in Canada right now. I would advise getting that booster shot, masking, and improving ventilation," she said. Tam added that a masking mandate might eliminate individual, quote, guesswork, but acknowledged that provincial public health authorities are trying to encourage good habits without forcing them on people. Quote, "I think in different communities, depending on context, the social cohesion, and other variables, each of those policies might work better under different circumstances. But I think people are keen to see and trust that the population are able to employ those layers of protection," she said. Asked whether the definition of fully vaccinated needs to change from 2 to 3 doses, Tam said it is an ongoing discussion, but maintained the importance of getting a third shot. I think the message today is get up to date with your vaccination, which includes a booster for the eligible population for all extensive purposes. That's 18 plus, and it also can be offered to adolescents, so that it is the most important message, she said. There's been a gradual rise in COVID-19 cases nationwide the end of March. However, officials say this was expected after some provinces lifted public health restrictions, including masking requirements and proof of vaccination. As testing rates have decreased, local authorities have been tracking the virus prevalent through municipal wastewater testing. At a national level, Tam said officials are trying to make more of that data publicly available. So health officials are testing your crap. They're testing your urine for COVID-19. Now, at the same time, in this article, they're saying there's been a gradual rise in COVID-19. But then, on the other hand, you have Dr. Tam saying, no matter where you are, no matter what community you're in, it's going to be a problem. The inconsistency is here. There is no proof. If you can't look back and say the whole 2 years has been a complete sham and a joke in terms of how society has handled this pandemic, the Kung flu from China, and yet we're going to try the same thing over and over and over again, and you want to make people wear a mask, keep on going for vaccines. If the vaccines worked after a third booster, we should have seen a stop to this. But no, we haven't. It's yet going up again. We are trying to provide that information about wastewater testing sites on a website. My personal suggestion would be that shit stinks. But I know we can do more as we are beginning to escalate the benefit of this tool. Wastewater data right now covers just over 60% of the population. We're aiming to do better, to try to get that 80% coverage. But it's not the easiest thing to interpret, she said. How about you let people know beforehand that you're going to be testing their shit? How about beforehand you let them know that their wastewater is subject to government regulation, that their waste will be inspected? According to data tracked by ctvnews.ca, approximately 32.4 million first doses of the COVID-19 vaccine have been administered. 31.2 million second doses have been administered, and 18.3 million third doses have been administered. Tam attributes Canada's rather low booster shot rate to the fact that some Canadians might have felt a third shot was unnecessary after the latest dip in cases. She also noted that the National Advisory Committee on Immunization still advises those who test positive for COVID-19 to wait 3 months before getting the jab. So I think some of those factors may be playing into why we are not getting the level of boost that we're seeing. I also recognize at the time of the initial effort in doing the boost campaign, it was a very difficult period of time when vaccinators were getting infected. We had absenteeism from the public health and health systems, Tam said. Could it also be that we had a prime minister that called people misogynist and racist if they didn't get the vaccine? Now, while we have health officials in Canada urging people to stay home and putting on masks and wanting another lockdown, what seems to be another lockdown, let's go across to the other side of the world and take a look at what's happening in Shanghai, which is in China. The article reads, Shanghai vows punishment for COVID lockdown violators as cases hit 25,000. Shanghai, April 13. China's commercial capital, Shanghai, warned on Wednesday that anyone who violates COVID-19 lockdown rules will be dealt with strictly, while also rallying citizens to defend their city as the tally of new cases rebounded to more than 25,000. The city police department spelled out restrictions that most of the 25 million residents are facing and called on them to fight the epidemic with one heart and work together for an early victory. Those who violate the provisions of this notice will be dealt with in strict accordance with the law by public security organs. If it constitutes a crime, they will be investigated accordingly to law, the department said in a statement. The financial hub is under huge pressure to try to contain China's biggest COVID outbreak since the coronavirus was first discovered in the city of Wuhan, some 800 kilometers to the west, in late 2019. Shanghai police also warned increasingly frustrated residents, millions of whom are confined to their homes and struggling to get daily supplies, not to spread false information or forge road passes or other clearance certificates. Residents battling to secure delivery slots for their food are also facing surging prices, which the government is keen to keep a lid on. Peng Wenouo, an official with Shanghai's Market Supervision Bureau, told reporters that authorities had issued 38,000 letters of warning against price gouging and was also investigating complaints of irregular pricing on social media. If illegal acts like price gouging taking place, it will be investigated and punished firmly and quickly, he said. Police also banned cars from the streets except for those involved in the epidemic prevention or transporting people in need of emergency medical treatment. Shanghai's Dragon TV, run by the state-owned Shanghai Media Group, said it was canceling a gala to mark the fight against COVID-19 scheduled for broadcast on Wednesday, after the event drew a barrage of criticism on social media. Outraged members of the public had vented their anger over what they saw was a waste of resources in putting on the gala at a time of a crisis. One accused the organizers of showing off. Significant disruption. Shanghai reported 25,141 new asymptomatic coronavirus cases for Tuesday, up from 22,348 a day earlier, and symptomatic cases also jumped to 1,189 from 994, city authorities said. Shanghai's COVID measures, which reflect China's strict zero-COVID approach, aimed at eliminating transmission chains, have reverberated through the global economy, with analysts warning that they are not only hurting tourism and hospitality, but have also having an impact on supply chains across sectors. Imports last month fell for the first time since August of 2020. Data shows on Wednesday, with COVID curbs hampering freight arrivals and weakening demands. The widespread lockdown and tighter zero-COVID restrictions in several cities around Shanghai have caused significant supply disruptions, with transport and logistics under severe pressures, Barclays Bank economist Zhang said in a note. Now, what else is happening is there are drones flying around. There are robot dogs with microphones telling people to stay inside. There are mass reports of people starving in their own homes. And so far as a joke which was on Weibo, which is the equivalent of Chinese Facebook, where one of the residents in Shanghai said that he had a black neighbor and he was going to eat him, to which the black neighbor was on the same site and saw that and said, "Why are you going to eat me? Don't eat me." The response was, "You speak Chinese? Don't trust the story? Go on to the website called thatsmags.com, taken from April 8th, 2022. And in fact, we'll even put it up on the Facebook group. It's a humorous article and one that's highly recommended reading. Some might say it's a little spicy. I think we've bit off more than we can chew on this episode, so I'd like to say thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Fact Is. I'm your host, Hollis Grant. Thank you for listening, and you have yourself a great week.
Dan, what happens every Thursday?
That would be DCR Droids Canada Radio.
And what time is it at on Thursday?
That's from 9 till 11 p.m.
Dumb question, where do you find it?
You find that at accessradio.ca.
And what's the best part?
It's free.